So Philadelphia is at Green Bay, and Carson Wentz versus Aaron Rodgers. So Heath, let's talk about the offense versus defense. It's time for our head and shoulders segment. We're looking at great offense. Are we looking at a great defense? The Packers so far, like I said at the top of the show, the second fewest points allowed in the NFL. The Eagles, they're ninth in scoring. They've played Washington, Atlanta, and Detroit. So who sort of wins this matchup, this offense versus defense matchup? Do you like the Packers defense or the Eagles offense?
I think that the Packers defense will get the better of this matchup, but it's not that I think that they are necessarily better defensively than the Eagles. They just have a couple of other things in their favor. It's a short week. It's on a Thursday night. It's at Lambeau, and Carson Wentz doesn't have Deshaun Jackson for this game. We don't know fully how healthy Alshon Jeffery is. So there's just a couple on a neutral field in a regular week. I might take Wentz against this matchup and just say he's probably going to be just good enough. But with all those other things in the Packers' favor, I'll take the defense.
All right, so we look at the waiver wire quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, Kyle Allen, Case Keenum. Yeah, I'll start with you, Heath, then I'll go to Ben. How many of them are you starting over Carson Wentz?
Okay, so Case Keenum for sure, Andy Dalton for sure, Daniel Jones for sure. Well, Jones is really, really close, and Brissett's right there as well.
All right, but Ben, how do you feel about Wentz? Because Wentz is 14th for Jamie, 12th for Dave, and 17th for Heath.
Yeah, I would start none of those guys over Wentz. I mean, I don't love him, and I don't love Thursday night games either. But Thursday night games, there's that narrative that they're low scoring, and last year we saw that kind of put to bed. There was a lot of really high scoring Thursday night games. It's a short week for the defenses too, and it might even be tougher for the defense to rebound. I mean, they're I think probably the more physical side than like wide receivers, but what I expect out of this game is that we actually see the first kind of high scoring Thursday night game this year. And we have this small sample so far that we haven't really seen that yet. I think this is going to shoot out a little bit. I think Rodgers is going to have to throw against Philadelphia a little bit, and that Wentz is going to be able to find some room downfield against Green Bay. It's not great that Deshaun Jackson is out, but Green Bay secondary got absolutely shredded by Minnesota, especially Stephon Diggs in week 2, and Kirk Cousins just played terribly. They're not like as good as their numbers to date. So I think Philadelphia can expose that.
All right. Differing takes there. And Heath, who do you like better, Wentz or Rodgers?
I like Rodgers better than Wentz, and I like Rodgers better than most of those streaming options as well. I'm starting Aaron Rodgers.
You're starting him, but you have Keenum one spot ahead.
Currently, in the early projections, the numbers and the math said Keenum one spot ahead of Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be hard for me to stomach that on Thursday afternoon. There are sometimes some adjustments that are made by me, and I may just make that adjustment. But Rodgers is a fine start.
Are you guys starting any of the running backs in this game? Because, look, Green Bay's run defense has been terrible so far. Most of that was Dalvin Cook. But they are allowing more than 5 yards per carry to running backs. They did pretty well against the Bears running backs. Philip Lindsay scored 2 touchdowns, but he averaged 3.9 yards per carry. Royce Freeman averaged 4.2 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook is hurting those numbers, so I don't know how good their run defense actually is. But the Eagles' run defense, week after week, even with their defensive line injuries, has been really, really stout. You have somewhat of a timeshare there. So, Ben, are any of the running backs in this game comfortable starts for you?
I would love to start Miles Sanders. I've talked about him for a few weeks. It's a little hard to – a lot of people pointed to the split in snaps last week for the Eagles and said, hey, this is becoming even more of a committee. It wasn't. Miles Sanders started again and played a ton through the middle of the second quarter. He had 10 carries and 3 targets by that point. He fumbled on a drive in the middle of the second quarter. They left him in the game. He fumbled again and lost it. Lost the second one on the same drive. And from that point, about the 5-minute mark of the second quarter, he didn't touch the ball again until about 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So he didn't touch the ball the entire third quarter. He basically got benched for a huge stretch after playing as their main back in the first quarter and a half of that game. Then he came back in. He had a couple touches late. They came back in when they were trailing and they needed some big plays, and he had like a 33-yard reception. Then he put up like 20 yards rushing on his 3 carries in the fourth quarter. He is their most explosive back, their best back. They want to use him. They went back to him in the fourth, and he gave them big plays, what they were looking for when they did go back to him. Jordan Howard got the goal line touches. That was another negative thing for Miles Sanders. Even before Sanders fumbles, Jordan Howard came in and got a 1-yard touchdown run. and we just don't know how much those fumbles will impact. It might delay his breakout a little bit, but I'm still still wanting to talk about his the fact that he's starting, the fact that he's playing as much as he is. The fumbles do delay that breakout a little bit, but they want him to be their lead back.
But you're not like all of those things are fine for the long-term value, and if we were still in the buy low, sell high section. But if you're talking about, you can't start him on Thursday night, right? Like we're talking about a guy that's averaging 13 touches per game.
I have to
and
start
just
him
got
in one
benched.
league.
Right. I was just going to say that. I'm in leagues where I have zero running back leagues, and I have to consider him.
Well, would you start Wayne Gallman or Miles Sanders?
Wayne Gallman.
Probably Gallman, yeah.
Would you start Adrian Peterson or Miles Sanders?
Miles Sanders. No question.
Yeah, there's definitely a question for me. It's very close. I'd probably start AP.
What's AP's upside? 15 points?
Well, the Giants are awful.
Well, what's Miles Sanders' upside?
Yeah, I mean, what's his
upside is 20 plus points.
Adrian Peterson's probably averaging more yards per carry right now.
I don't know.
I can't take the 2-down plotter on one of the worst teams in football. I mean, how's that going in Miami? How's that going?
Listen, we gotta go to the Packers because Aaron Jones. Dave is high on Aaron Jones. Heath and Jamie have him as like a number 2 guy. So Heath, let's finish off with the Packers. Aaron Jones, your thoughts on him, and then obviously everybody's starting Davante Adams. What about Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
Yeah, I would like Jones is the only running back I would consider starting in this game, and you probably will start Aaron Jones. There are some guys, like assuming LaShawn McCoy's practicing later this week, I think you start LaShawn McCoy over Aaron Jones. It's a bad situation with him wanting to split up touches, and if this game turns into a game with high passing volume for Aaron Rodgers, that's bad news for Aaron Jones most likely. But he's a low-end number 2 running back that you probably end up starting. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, more of a flex. It will be interesting to see against a matchup where Davante Adams should not have any trouble getting open. Is this the situation where he finally goes back to dominating targets? Because so far, Valdes-Scantling has more targets than Davante Adams does on the season and has more production. I'll be interesting to see what the target split is there. I would start Valdes-Scantling as a number 3 wide receiver, but he's better as a flex.
All right, I mean, look, this is a great matchup so far. 4 wide receivers have had 100-yard games. 5 wide receivers have caught a touchdown against the Eagles in only 3 games. So, I think there's room for both of these guys, Adams and MVS, to be good. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Geronimo Allison, but he hasn't done much other than the Minnesota game. He had 4 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown. He's been pretty useless. Okay, who is the second best wide receiver in this game behind Davante Adams? Is it Agholor? Is it Alshon? Is it MVS? I've got
Alshon and Agholor back, or Alshon and Marquez Valdes-Scantling back to back at 32 and 33. I guess I'd take Alshon, but I think there's more upside with MVS.
So I was going to lean MVS as well because we don't really know Alshon's health.
Are we sitting Nelson Agholor?
Oh, Ben? Yeah, I cut him in a couple of leagues. Thank you for your service. I appreciate what you did for me last week. We're done.
Okay. All right, interesting. And I'm assuming we're not starting Jimmy Graham.
You can't.
Correct.
Yeah. Packers DST, they're the number 4 DST in standard scoring leagues right now. You know, every league is different. The Eagles have allowed 2 big games in a row. The Packers are one of the top sacking teams in the NFL. The 2 Smiths that they signed in the offseason have been great for them. But Heath has them 14th. Dave and Jamie are a little higher on the Packers DST at 8th for Jamie and 6th for Dave. And that will be the end of our game preview.